have been. I can't imagine what the experience must have been like. So you've had that training session where even you yourself kind of were there. Like, I don't get it. Why is everyone watching me train? I'm just Zach.
Like we had an open one at Farnham. That was the first weekend, and then a couple of weeks later in the Easter holidays, we had a couple open sessions. We had an open session for coaches, local coaches to come and watch the coaches coach us in the big setup. And I knew loads of the coaches, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're playing?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm playing here now. It's cool." And then when we went into the test weeks, we coached ourselves, little like local teams. I had loads of people coaching like, "Oh, you go to school here," and like I knew the parents. And then after, this is what really got to me actually. After our second open training session, where these kids had come to train with us, train themselves, and then come and stay to watch us train. And they were like, "Wow, they're in England kit, they're training." We were taking photos of them after signing stuff. This one kid at the end, everyone had gone in and got their food, and I was out there, and he kept asking questions. His mum was like, "Can I get a photo of you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I waited like half an hour, 45 minutes, just talking to him about rugby, and I never got to know his name. He never told me his name. And I spoke to him for like 45 minutes, and like his mum was like, after I was walking away, and she was like, "Thank you so much for that. He loves rugby and he loves England, and it's made his year." And I was like, "Oh, really? That's brilliant." And the same kid, after both games against Ireland, we'd have so he'd run out of the changing rooms and he would be there watching, and I'd see him and I'd be like, "Oh, how you doing?" I would like smile at him as I ran out, and then did the anthem and stuff like that. And then after both games, so we go for after the games, like not just straight away. After games, I had like his mates would come up and like I'd sign the programs and sign a photo and stuff like that, which was surreal to me anyway, and I was still a bit confused as to why. He would stay back, and then after that we'd got changed into our shirt and tie, gone to have the food, have the presentation of these little like badges that we got from Ireland. He'd be outside the clubhouse waiting to see me and take a photo of me, and he'd shout my name as I came out. And I was like, this is so wholesome. Like I didn't know, and it's the thing I remember most about playing the games is after him being there. She was like, this has been one of the best weeks he's had, and I was like, that's brilliant. I didn't really know how to respond. But yeah, that's what I remember. I haven't really the games themselves. The first game, it was about 10 minutes in, and if you watch my highlights on YouTube from my under 18 season, you'll see it's probably the first one. We had a move that went 10-12, and then classic 13 hits a line and 10's at back.
Yeah, sure.
And I took it on the crash ball, went straight for a gap, hand someone off, got to this fullback. We all heard about this fullback. He signed like a 3-year deal at Ulster. Big name. I was playing against this guy who at 13, who was my number, called Hayden Hyde. Now has just come back to play for Harlequins.
Wow.
So we had a lot of big names that we were like, oh, we just play county rugby. And I took the ball straight through the gap, came up against his fullback and hit the most outrageous, like audacious goose step, which I don't even remember doing it. It just happened. I was like,
what a hard skill to master as well. I
don't even know. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I was like, I literally just put one up, went round him, and just sprinted. I was like, oh my God. Couldn't even hear all the crowd was screaming. And then slid in the corner, and it was wet, and it was like a massive slide. And I was like, what? This is crazy. And my mates were on the sidelines. And that's like the first thing I like really settled into the game. And that's another actual memory of the games where I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I've just scored it in an England shirt. It might be at counties at under 18s level. That's something for me that was huge. And then throughout the rest of the game, I scored again in the second game. We won the first game, and that's not very common. And then the second game, we won with a kick in the 80th minute. I was off. I broke my knuckle. You can see now there's no knuckle here.
Oh yeah.
It was fused down here somewhere if you compare it. So I broke my knuckle, so I was off. I was like sling, all up, and I was like, oh, I knew. One of the first things someone said was, "You're gonna have to go out tonight with a sling, and I was like, oh yeah. And my hand was like this big, and I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And this guy called Aaron, who plays for Cornwall RFU now, RFC, so he's playing county rugby at home again. He slotted this kick from ages away. I just lost my head, sprinted on. My hand was hurting so much, jumped on the boys, and it was crazy. That whole week was unbelievable, and it's something I'll never forget.
That sounds like, honestly, it sounds like such an amazing achievement. You know, it takes a lot to be able to get yourself up to that level, and not only to be knocked down the way that you had been previously and then just spring back as if nothing had happened before. You were such a stronger, more rugby smart player as a result, and then you went and you grabbed that opportunity with both hands, and then is that ultimately what led you into finding Cardiff Met as your university of choice?
Yeah, so I was still thinking of, am I going to be a ski instructor now? What am I going to do next? Am I going to go into professional rugby? And there were there's a few offers that came from championship sides, and I had professional offers there, and some offers from places like London Scottish. Harlequins were watching the game, but I didn't really hear from. I don't think anyone heard from them. So I was like, oh, could I play championship rugby, make a bit of fun out of it, earn some money? But then I can't remember how I found out about it. I was obviously applied for unis in second year in college. And Cardiff Met was not one I was looking at, and I found out about it. And I'd gone to Exeter and Bath and St Mary's to look at rugby setups, and got offers from all three of those. And then I came to Cardiff Met, and I was like, I missed the open day because I was skiing with school. And Danny Milton was like, I emailed him and I was like, could I come and speak to you about rugby? Because I missed the rugby open day and I want to play rugby for Cardiff Met, because I've seen obviously on YouTube such a big setup, people playing for Harlequins now, from Lukey and Alex Donbrandt, and I was like, this could be huge. Like, people go professional off this, they play in front of hundreds of people every Wednesday. So I went there and I got to the campus and I was like, oh my god, I didn't really know what to expect, because everywhere else was a bit more city campus. This is like a little village. Kincoid actually is like a little village.
It is. It's a fantastic campus to be part of, and
yeah,
you're constantly surrounded by sport, aren't you?
Exactly. That's what I thought. I said as soon as I got there, I was like, this place definitely breeds athletes.
Yeah.
And that was solidified when I saw Colin Jackson just walking around, and I was like, oh my god, what are you doing here?
I think that must have been the highlight of my mum's open day when she came with me. Was the whole way back home, she was like, wow, we saw Colin Jackson, didn't we? I was like, yeah, the course is great, but we did see Colin Jackson. But let's talk about this. She was like, no, we saw Colin Jackson. Wow, highlight of the day. So exactly. it is such a fantastic campus to be around, that really promotes, sport is great and sport is here, and it's definitely a career that you can pursue. And you talk about that man, Danny Milton, or Mr. Met, really, when you think about it, because he's such a loud personality, but in such a great way. Yeah. How big a deciding factor was he in making your decision to come to Cardiff Met?
Well, what it was, I met Rhys Roberts first. Another integral part of my development as a rugby player, and I've got so much to thank him for, skill-wise, mindset-wise. And he did me a tour of the campus and all of this. And then I went into a room with Danny and guards, and they spoke to me, and it was just a different kind of vibe. They were like, yeah, we've watched your highlights. We think you're good. We think you should come to pre-season. Or actually, no, they said, we think you could come to pre-season, we'll let you know. And I was like, oh, that's a big call for a fresher who's never been to uni before. And I was really excited. And I was like, oh, that would be class. We got pre-season. I reckon I could break into the first team and maybe potentially get a couple of games at first team. And yeah, so with Danny Milton, he was just so positive, and he knew that the setup was good, and he backed the setup, and he said, you could do really well here. And from him saying that, I was like, I could do really well here. And I looked around Cardiff, and it was just a no-brainer. I was like, I'm definitely going to Cardiff Met, and I've never really looked back since. Like, I wouldn't change anything, any decision I've made ever.
Absolutely. And you mentioned three big names. We already said Danny, as you mentioned. Rhys Roberts, again, fantastic athlete in his own right, back when he was playing for Met in his heyday, and obviously working with the WIU now, a really fantastic figure to sort of build your rugby around. And then of course the expertise and the years of experience that Guards has had, and the fantastic personality and honest personality that he has as well when talking about games. that is the ideal environment almost for you to be in as a player growing. And what would you say is your biggest moment at Cardiff Met? What has been your biggest moment? Was it the first time you stepped out on the Super Rugby pitch? Was it the first time you went out in the Championship? Or was it the first time that Danny screamed you'd done a good job in training? Which one was perhaps your biggest highlight?
There's so many to pick from, but for me, the biggest one in a Met jersey would be scorer. So I was selected for the first Buck Super Rugby game of the year against Cardiff in front of thousands of people. And we were a few minutes in, and Dan Thurston was on the bottom of a ruck, got a ball, just popped his knee. All I had to do was run and dive over the line, turn around, the place erupts, and I just couldn't, I have goosebumps to think about it now. It was live streamed, the commentator I got spoke about before the game, and I was like, I've never been spoken about by commentators before, this is weird. People sent me videos of it because they were watching, and they were like, oh, I didn't even know that happened. And I scored, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then scored, turn around, the boys just come sprinting at me, jump and hug me. I know I watched it before, and it's Tom Benjamin jumps in the air, punches the air, and you hear the crowd go, and it's just, I could never recreate a feeling like that in uni. Hopefully I can do it on a bigger stage, but
yeah, absolutely.
It was something else.
You've already mentioned, a couple of big names there. Obviously, Dan Thurston used to play for Bristol Bears. You've got Tom Benjamin now playing with Amphill in the Championship. What did it mean to have that sort of caliber of player with you almost day in, day out in university life?
It was, this is what was weird, because people like Luke Northmore, plays for Harlequins now. He was like the model professional. Got a 2-1 or first, something high 2-1 on first in his course, smashed it. You barely saw him out drinking. He was lifting the most in the gym. He was scoring the most tries. He was always the first name on the team sheet, and he was inspirational to take that lifestyle from. But then you got the other end of the spectrum, where Matt Marsh now plays Ampto in a rugby the Championship, and Tom Benjamin, both of them are social sex, but so they balanced it brilliantly.
Yeah,
played first team. Tom Benjamin's that loud, confident guy who would, much like Andrew Nurse in my second year when he was a third year, you could always look to do something, and if your team was struggling, and saying like Northmore and Benji and Nursey and Marshy were all people you could look to. Dan Thurston always put in a solid performance. It was a professional setup with people you knew would be professional players or go on to do amazing things. You don't really see it until you look back on it and you're like, oh, I was witnessing history there. So the highlights that Luke Northmore got signed from, how Harlequins saw him in the matches, I was playing in them, and I was like, oh my God, wouldn't realise they were watching these games. Or I'm in some of his highlights, and it really puts you in perspective. You're in a really high performance setup, and
absolutely,
you've got to, and it really opens your eyes to the fact that the setup in Cardiff Met will lead to great things if you've got that work ethic, and you buy in, and you do the gym with Di Watts, and the nutrition with Di Watts, and the training with Reese, and the training with Danny, training with Gard. You do the extra bit, you're going to get very far.
Absolutely.
So that was really
you talked briefly there how well Luke and how well Matt and how well Tom sort of balanced the whole uni life, and also taking this environment that it was basically a professional club. When you look back on it, how hard or how easy did you find it then to be a full-time student alongside a full-time professional athlete? What that sort of lifestyle is like? How did Monday look for you? How did Tuesday look for you?
I'll tell you, everyone thinks to me when they go, oh, where'd you play? I go, at uni. Oh, that must be fun. Don't realise that as a fresher, I played first team from the start, and was in the setup with the gym and the focus group from the start. So with a lot of people like Russ Bennett and people like that, we all had the same, and Ellis Bevan, who just signed for Blues, we had the same thing as Freshers Week. We'd be in a gym at 6:30 in the morning, going out every night, except from Friday night because you have a game. I know I went out every night, got back at 3, 4, got up at 6, went to do a gym session. So for example, Mondays, I remember I got here on a Saturday, played a champ game when all my housemates arrived, and all these freshers were coming to watch, and they're like, how is he already playing the game? And I was like, oh, it's just one of those weird moments. And in that night, the Saturday night I went out, the Sunday night I went to soda, which was never a good idea when you go to Sunday soda, sweaty. I was very drunk, and I got in the morning, and I was like, I've got to go to the gym in an hour and a half. And like for that example, that Monday I had a 9 a.m. I went out on Sunday, gym at 6:30 in the morning on the Monday, straight to lectures like you did when you came to see us. Lectures all day until about 3. We had analysis at 5, and then training until 7:30, 9. So, and then I'd have to come back, get changed, and go out again because it was Freshers Week, and I was always gonna live my fresher year out as I wanted to.
Take advantage of the uni experience while you could, really.
Exactly. So that was hard, but then to carry that on for 3 years, or 2.5 is about 2 actually, to carry that on through uni, the setup, the constant being analysed, the constant trying to get into the first team, constant trying to stay in the first team, really takes it out because you can't think about anything other than rugby really when all you're doing is rugby, and you've got to do a course at the same time. And I found it quite hard at the start to balance it. My nutrition went out the window a bit in first year, but second year I managed to get it back, and I'm in good shape now. And it's quite like it takes a few trial and error sessions to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about lots of other people watching this, but I definitely couldn't do 100 burpees in the hallway of my student house in my 3rd year. And I know that's exactly what you've been doing. So you've been putting the rest of us to shame, really, which that brings us nicely onto, the next thing I want to talk to you about is you said briefly there how it's basically felt like 2 years worth of, professional rugby alongside studies. Then all of a sudden, COVID hit. How much of a disruption was that to you personally? Did it throw you off your stride at first? And is there anything that you actually started doing more of that you found helped during lockdown?
Well, first of all, the second year for me was it kind of leads on to it. The second year for me was where I had those struggles that I talked about with mental health, and was at the lowest. My mum came up and stayed in my bed for a couple of days because I was really at a low point. And I'm not really embarrassed to admit that, because I've got past it. I'm a much more stronger person as a result of it. And my housemate Fraser and Meg's, we'd have sleepovers on the floor just so that I wasn't feeling alone and down about my whole career, because I wasn't playing my best rugby and I wasn't getting selected for the games I wanted to play. So I always say for me, after that, Corona kind of like a wake-up call to how much I wanted to enjoy rugby. Because I wasn't enjoying it for a bit of second year. I'd cry after sessions in my car on the way back. I'd get home, I'd be moody, I wouldn't do work, I'd go straight to bed and sleep and be really down. But then I'd always look forward to training, which is something that I really take into account when I talk about why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through the stress of selection, stress of contracts and negotiations? And it's because I always look forward to training. I always look forward to rugby. So if I took the stress out of it and just enjoyed playing it, and I'm going to go further than I would if I worried about trying to be the best in the world. So lockdown for me was kind of good, kind of bad. I was in a relationship at the time. I went into lockdown with her, and then went home, and that relationship ended. I ended that relationship because it was something that I don't know. It wasn't something that I wanted to be in anymore. I wanted to change.
Sure.
I'd fallen out of love with all of that stuff. And it's always like a young relationship is hard to get back from. And I was.
It's not exactly in the of times at the moment either for relationships in any stands to really keep going. So so you're being so open about that, because it's something that people probably don't even think about if they're not that age and in that situation.
Yeah, I'm open about it because I don't really have many reasons not to be. It's not like I haven't said anything private. It's just how I felt, and for me coming out of that, I started going for runs. I started going at home. I do all the fitness that my I don't want to say escape, but the thing I turn to when I'm upset with the rest of my life is rugby and fitness and staying fit for rugby. And that led to one of the best summers I've had in my life. Because some sort of pubs started to reopen and clubs reopened, and when I was in actual lockdown, I'd sit and I'd get up and I'd do some uni work. When I finished all my second year, I'd play PlayStation and go for a run and sit in a garden and go for a walk or something. And I was just did the classic stuff you did in lockdown. And I kind of built myself. I worked on myself a lot more than I ever done before. It made myself realize that being alone wasn't, like, being on my own wasn't a bad thing, and like enjoying my own company, which has really helped me now with my mental toughness when it comes to rugby. So one thing I always say is whenever I do anything, it's always related to rugby.
Sure.
It's like an addiction. Like everything I think about is related to rugby, and it's just, people think it's stupid. People don't really understand unless you're in the setup that it's hard not to. So I try to find different outlets of enjoyment. Jonah was a part of that. We used to go, and even though we did rugby sessions, it was more like I'd enjoy seeing him and doing that. And then the summer came, and it was probably the best summer of my life. Like I can't fault it. We played rugby like at a local club at Havant, where I went to when I was with England, which is it feels like I was only there for a year, but it feels like a home to me, because of the way they
it is a lovely little rugby club, Havant. I've been down there through minis and juniors games before.
Yeah, it's very nice down there, and they're very welcoming. They love rugby, so you can't really fault it. They're very welcoming to me, and I'd go there and do skill sessions. And then when rugby came back a little bit, I went there, did a bit of pre-season before I came back to uni. Anyway, in that summer, I went on my first ever lads holiday. We went surfing down in Cornwall.
I've been for a lads holiday in Cornwall. It's definitely the place to go. None of
Unbelievable.
this Marbella or Greece malarkey.
As you see, I chucked the balls on. I got a roof rack on my car. I chucked the balls on the roof rack. Me, Jonah, my friends Angus, Patrick, and Harry just went, should we just do it? And then we went down. There was a pub nearby. There was no surf, so we just played football all day. Made friends. They were like, we camped in a field, and then we had to move out the field because that one was taken. And then we ended up next to two tents of girls. So we made friends with these two tents and played football and stuff like that. And then went to the beach at night to drink. And for me, I tried to forget about rugby. Didn't do any fitness other than swimming and surfing and paddleboarding, and really tried to forget about rugby. So I let myself have a few drinks, and we drank pretty much every night. And we went to get breakfast somewhere, really nice breakfast, and eat like a fry up and not feel bad about it. And that kind of led on to the summer, where I've got a beach hut at home. My family have a beach hut on the South Sea seafront, which is really nice for just chilling out and city of people watching. And we all went down there. We'd have a couple of drinks. We'd go paddleboarding. We'd go swimming. We'd sunbathe. And it was just so good because I just spent time with my friends, which I hadn't done before because I'd been a bit of a relationship crazy guy when I was younger. I was always in a relationship. Yeah. And it was really opening up to like the importance of friendship in life as well as a career, because now from that lockdown period and getting out a bit, I made so many friendships that I can treasure for life, and know will be friendships for life, which I wouldn't have done without Corona. So for me, to answer your question at the start, lockdown wasn't that bad. Like, being in lockdown was hard, but then coming out of it and it gave me a bit of a new perspective on the things in life that I should be worried about rather than just worrying about rugby. But it also gave me that renewed enjoyment for rugby. I can't wait to get back to it, and can't wait to sign something, hopefully in the next few months.
That leads nicely into what I want to talk about next, which is, of course, the future. Your future in rugby. Is that something you want to happen? Do you want your future to be rugby?
Yeah, 100%. So in second year, I was approached by an agent who works for international player management, and we had a few chats with some Premiership sides and some regional sides, and there's talk of like an offer of a pathway contract with Ospreys, which isn't I wouldn't say it's a bad contract, but it's not the contract I could live off, and it would be a bit of a contract that I wouldn't be able to drop out of uni for, but I'd have to be training full time.
Sure.
So I that kind of deliberated, and that was just as Corona hit. And then my agent went off. It wasn't really, I hadn't signed anything with him, but he went off the radar and just wouldn't reply to my text. And then halfway through lockdown, when I was at home, I got a text from my current agent called Ben Williams, a great guy. He's the agent for my friend Mattas, who plays for England Counties with me, who now plays for Harlequins. And he approached me, and I signed with him, and I fully signed it, and I became a representative athlete. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And he's been working really hard in lockdown and since everything happened, as I came back to uni, and then we keep in contact. And I'm going to be a professional rugby player next year, or at least sign for a club and take my career to the next level. And
any ideas at the moment who that might be with? Is that going to be a championship side, premiership side? Is it going to be in Wales?
It's the sort of one of those things where I can't say, not because it's confidential, but because I quite like to keep the negotiation between me and
Ben. Sure, absolutely.
Because I know where I'm going to end up if I get nothing. I know where I'm going to end up if I get the best thing, but I don't want to say something and then have it.
You don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, exactly. So I try not to put people's expectations too high.
No, that's fine. But it's exciting to hear that, you definitely want a future in rugby, and that you see, because you talk about that whole idea of you needed to enjoy rugby again, and you needed to have that break almost from it because of how you were feeling during the second year. And so now you're out the other side of it, and it's so fantastic to hear that that's what you want to go for. And you talked previously about having a Welsh connection, which is what meant you play for Exiles, and you've also got that England side of things because you've been playing for England County. Yeah. Let's say 5 years down the line, Zach Clow, leading try scorer in whichever league he's in. He gets the call from Wayne Pivac, and he gets the call from Eddie Jones, if they're still there, that is. Who's he going to go to? Who's Zach going to look and direct his attention to?
I think a lot of people who are Welsh are going to hate you for this, but I would go for England because it's just the childhood club I've supported, and it kind of links onto my career. Because I played for a guest game for Harlequins against Exeter Chiefs in the first year at uni, and my goal, because I support Harlequins, is to play for Harlequins, much like Lukey and much like Alex Donbran, and to get into that setup. And then for me, the ideal thing would be to play for England. But I'm not going to turn it. If I sign for a Welsh region, I'm not going to say no. And I'm not going to turn to Wayne Pivac and go, no, thanks, mate. Because if everyone hates it, you can't support England and Wales. I'm like, I support England, but if Wales are playing, I'm not going to hate them and tell them to not win.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm playing in Wales and in a region and I get a call up to the Welsh squad, I'm not going to be like, no, I want to go to play. I'm very proud of my Welsh heritage, and Wales is a rugby mad country, and I would say yes. But if both of them came calling, I think I'd have to be England, because it's just something I've followed since I was young, since I started playing rugby. And for me, to wear the rose again, seeing a senior debut would be immense, and it would be another stepping stone towards my long-term goal, which is not really in my mind at the moment, but would be to play a Lions tour or a World
Absolutely. Cup. That's got to be the pinnacle of international rugby, is especially from around these parts, is to get to wear that Lions jersey, even for one match, is just an incredible honour. And I think, I mean, from what I've seen from watching you play, having the honour of, doing a pitch walk with you and, giving me a few jibes whilst I've been trying to take pictures on my phone, I think that you've definitely got the drive to get yourself up there. And I'm really excited to see, where you take your career from here, Zach, because you've got that drive and you've had the experience that's built you into this fantastic player. And I think what I'm going to do to end on now is I'm just going to ask you, what do you think of England right now? Because obviously that's a lot of people's conversations right now. We've spoken about your career. I thought it would be interesting to finish and see what your opinion of the England team is. And then because you are a 13 and a winger, I want you to pick an outside centre and a winger that you think should go to this year's Lions tour.
England right now, I think we need a bit of a change in personnel. I'd love to see Sam Simmons and Alex Donbran and Marcus Smith get their run-outs for England and change up a bit the way we play and be a bit more exciting, because I think we've got the ability to do that, especially with Henry Slade at 13. Picking a Lions 13 and winger, Henry Slade has to be my 13 going to the Lions tour.
Sure.
Purely because of his versatility in the back line. The winger is a hard one, but I'll give you two options. If I was talking about form at the moment, it would be Louis Samet from Wales. But if I was talking of having that guy who consistently scores tries and is a big game player, it would be Johnny May or Anthony Watson for me. So it's not really answering the question, but it's hard. I'd hate to be in the shoes of Warren Gatland trying to pick a squad at the moment.
No, me too. Thank goodness I have nothing to do with that Lions squad selection. Otherwise, I think there'll be a lot of questions raised. Well, Zach, it's been an absolute privilege to be able to talk to you so openly about your career and everything and your experiences. And I'm really excited to see where you go in the future. I quite like to think that we can do a sort of Billie Eilish thing where we interview you next year and you spent a year living out your dream at Harlequins in the Premiership.
I hope so, yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'd happily do it. I love having a conversations like this and really discussing what's going to happen, hopefully for me.
Yeah.
Takes a bit of the pressure off as well, just to have a nice little chat about rugby itself, and it's different in lockdown especially. So
I'm going to end the recording, but do you want to plug your socials? I'll leave you on a call, but I'll end the recording giving a plug to your socials, and you can plug Jonas if you want as well, because then there'll be a banter between the two.
I'd have to have look. I know my Instagram is Zach_Clow, I think, and then my Twitter is. I'll have a look. Oh my god, I can't do it. Is the same as Zach_Clow. I don't really tweet as much as my brother. He loves to tweet, but Zach_Clow on Instagram and Twitter. CLOW and for the last name, and CH for the end of the first name, and obviously welcome new followers.
Thank you for joining me, James Roberts, in my conversation with young rising rugby star Zach Clow. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new video each week.